A human rookie walked in, and the deadliest predator became her pet, reached its breathtaking climax when a meteor strike disabled the station's power systems, causing RZ-9's cage to unlock, defying orders. Maya raced to confront the feared alien predator alone, armed only with a makeshift communication device. She knelt before the creature, extending her hand in a gesture of trust that forever changed interspecies relations. The boarding shuttle docked with a metallic clang at Helios Prime Research Outpost, sending vibrations through Lieutenant Maya Nakamura's boots. She gripped her single duffel bag tighter and took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. Through the viewport, she could see the sprawling orbital station hanging against the backdrop of Epsilon Eridani, its massive solar arrays gleaming in the distant starlight. "First time off-world?" asked the pilot, a grizzled man with cybernetic implants crawling up his neck. "First time this far," Maya admitted, trying to keep her voice steady. Her heart hammered in her chest, a mixture of excitement and trepidation that had been building since she'd received her assignment. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure, revealing a corridor lined with luminescent alien glyphs etched into metallic bulkheads. The walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own, casting eerie shadows that danced across the floor. Beyond the reinforced windows, the gas giant loomed large, its swirling storms visible even from this distance. Maya stepped through, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous docking bay. 6 years at Earth's Xenoscience Academy, countless simulations, and a lifetime of fascination with apex predators had led her to this moment. As a child, she had filled notebooks with sketches of Earth's most fearsome hunters, tigers, sharks, wolves, fascinated by their power and grace. Later, she'd expanded her studies to include exobiological predators from a dozen worlds. But nothing had prepared her for what waited in the containment wing of Helios Prime. "Lieutenant Nakamura," the voice was deep, guttural, and unmistakably non-human. Maya turned to face Station Commander Drathos, a reptilian xenobiologist whose scaled skin bore the scars of decades in the field. His vertical pupils narrowed as he regarded her, contempt barely concealed beneath a veneer of professional courtesy. "Commander," she replied, offering the traditional salute of the Xenoscience Corps. "Thank you for—" "Save it," Drathos interrupted, mandibles clicking in what Maya recognized as impatience. "You're the 4th replacement team we've had to bring in. I hope you last longer than the others." Maya swallowed hard, aware of the whispers that had followed her assignment. In the shuttle bay behind her, 2 technicians were unloading equipment, their voices carrying in the metallic space. "Another one for the Predator to eat," one muttered. "3 crews already. What makes them think a rookie will survive?" the other replied. Drathos gestured for Maya to follow him down a long corridor, past laboratories where researchers of various species hunched over glowing screens and specimen containers. "Your quarters are in Section 8. Briefing at 0700 tomorrow. Until then, stay out of the containment wing." As they walked, they passed a reinforced viewport that looked into a dimly lit chamber. Maya couldn't help but slow her pace, peering through the triple-layered glass. Inside, something moved in the shadows, a flicker of black-scaled limbs, the twitch of what appeared to be an armored tail. Her breath caught in her throat. "Curiosity killed more than cats here." "Lieutenant," came a soft voice beside her. A human woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes had appeared at her elbow. "I'm Dr. Amira Al-Qadi, senior xenobiologist. You must be Maya." "Yes, Doctor, A sudden crash from within the containment chamber cut her off. Something had slammed against the viewport, causing even the reinforced glass to shudder. For just a moment, Maya found herself staring into multiple eyes that gleamed with an intelligence that sent chills down her spine. "Curiosity," Dr. Al-Qadi repeated, gently pulling Maya away, "can get you eaten." Maya lay awake in her quarters that night, staring at the ceiling where projections of Epsilon Eridani's star system rotated slowly. Tomorrow, she would officially meet Specimen RZ-9, the creature she'd glimpsed in the containment wing. Her files contained only the basics: a six-limbed hunter captured from one of the gas giant's moons, responsible for the deaths of at least 7 researchers across 3 teams. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of being stalked through metal corridors by something with too many limbs and eyes that understood far too much. The briefing room was sterile and cold, dominated by a large holographic display in the center. Maya took her seat among the xenobiology team, aware of the sidelong glances and whispered comments. As the newest and youngest member, she represented an unknown quantity, possibly another liability. Commander Drathos activated the display with a flick of his clawed hand. A 3-dimensional image of RZ-9 appeared, rotating slowly in the air before them. The creature was magnificent in a terrifying way. 6 limbs arranged around a central torso, 4 of which ended in what appeared to be natural weapons, razor-sharp appendages that could slice through standard armor. Its exoskeleton was a deep obsidian that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Multiple eyes were arranged in clusters on what passed for its head, and its jaw, if that's what it was, looked capable of crushing bone. "Specimen RZ-9, Drathos began, his voice clinical and detached. "Captured 64 days ago on Epsilon Eridani 4B. Since then, it has killed 7 personnel and injured 12 others. It displays extreme aggression, territorial behavior, and an unfortunate knack for circumventing our containment protocols." Dr. Al-Qadi stepped forward. "We've documented remarkable speed, strength, and what appears to be problem-solving abilities. However, all attempts at communication or behavior modification have failed. Because it's an unthinking killing machine," interjected a burly security officer at the back of the room. Security Chief Vorn, Maya recognized from her briefing files. His cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on the hologram. "The Council should have authorized termination after the second fatality." Maya found herself speaking before she could stop herself. "Has anyone tried non-confrontational observation? Passive interaction without the pressure of experiments or tests?" The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her, some curious, others dismissive. "And what would that accomplish, Lieutenant?" Drathos asked, his tone making it clear he expected no useful answer. "Well, sir, on Earth, even our most dangerous predators respond differently when not threatened. If RZ-9 has the intelligence your reports suggest, perhaps it's been reacting to perceived aggression rather than displaying innate hostility." Before Drathos could respond, the main screen flickered, and the stern face of an Interstellar Council representative appeared. "Commander Drathos, this is Counselor Shin. The Council requires daily new data on RZ-9's behavior and capabilities. The Defense Ministry is particularly interested in potential applications. Without significant progress in the next 14 days, we will be forced to reassign the specimen to Facility Omega for more invasive research." Maya felt a chill at the words. Facility Omega was notorious for its destructive testing protocols, essentially dissection of living specimens to understand their biological mechanics. After the transmission ended, Drathos turned to the team. "You heard the counselor. We need results. Dr. Al-Qadi, prepare a new testing regimen. Security Chief Vorn, double the containment protocols." Dismissed. As the team filed out, Maya remained seated, staring at the rotating hologram of RZ-9. There was something in those eyes, something that didn't match the unthinking killing machine narrative. She made her decision. "Commander," she called out as Drathos reached the door, "I volunteer for the first supervised observation shift with RZ-9. The reptilian commander turned slowly, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement or concern. "Your funeral, Lieutenant." Dressed in full hazard gear, Maya stood before the observation chamber, her heart pounding against her ribs. Security Chief Vorn ran through the safety protocols one final time, his cybernetic eye constantly scanning for threats. If it charges the glass, hit the red button. If it displays any behavior not on the approved list, hit the red button. If you feel uncomfortable for any reason, hit the red button. Maya finished for him. I understand, Chief. I doubt that, Vorn muttered, but he stepped back and activated the airlock to the observation post. Maya entered the small chamber that adjoined RZ-9's containment area. Triple-layered glass separated her from the creature. Those sensors and communication equipment would allow her to record and analyze its behavior without direct contact. She settled into the observation chair and began her log. Lieutenant Maya Nakamura, first supervised observation of specimen RZ-9. Time is 0900 hours. At first, the creature seemed to ignore her presence entirely. It paced the perimeter of its enclosure, a large room designed to mimic aspects of its native environment, with varying terrain levels and several structures that could serve as shelter or vantage points. But as Maya watched, she began to notice patterns in its movement. It wasn't random pacing. RZ-9 paused at specific points, touching a fracture in the floor grate, examining a water drip from the ceiling. Subject displays methodical environmental assessment, she noted quietly into her recorder. Possible territorial marking or security checking. Behavior suggests higher cognitive function than previously documented. After nearly an hour of observation, RZ-9 suddenly stopped and turned toward the glass. Maya's heart skipped a beat as those multiple eyes locked onto her position. She forced herself to remain still, to maintain eye contact without flinching. The creature tilted its head, a surprisingly vertebrate gesture, and approached the glass. Maya expected aggression, the charging behavior Vorn had warned about. Instead, RZ-9 placed one of its less weaponized limbs against the transparent barrier, almost like a curious child might. Then, just as suddenly, it retreated to the far corner of the enclosure. When her shift ended, Maya's mind was racing with observations and theories. She hurried to the xenobiology lab to download her recordings and notes, only to find Commander Drathos reviewing her file. Interesting approach, Lieutenant, he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. Watching it do nothing for 3 hours. With respect, Commander, RZ-9 wasn't doing nothing. It was assessing its environment, establishing routines, possibly even attempting to communicate through movement patterns. Drathos closed her file with a dismissive flick. We need concrete data, Lieutenant. Behavioral triggers, physical capabilities, biological weaknesses, not your interpretations of its pacing. After he left, Dr. Al-Qadi emerged from an adjacent lab. Don't mind him, she said softly. Drathos has been under immense pressure since the last fatality. The council is breathing down his neck. But he's missing the point, Maya insisted. We're treating RZ-9 like a specimen to be prodded and tested, not a potentially sentient being trying to understand its captivity. Al-Qadi glanced around to ensure they were alone. Between us, I think you might be onto something. My own observations have noted consistencies that suggest intelligence. Keep digging, but be careful. Not everyone here will appreciate your approach. Over the next several days, Maya continued her observation shifts, gradually introducing small changes to RZ-9's environment. She began with light patterns, simple pulses that mimicked the rhythm of the creature's movements. To her delight, RZ-9 responded not with aggression but with what appeared to be cautious curiosity. Next came odor cues, synthetic reproductions of scents from its home moon. The creature's reaction was even more pronounced. It followed the scent patterns, then produced its own markings in response. During her 5th observation session, Maya detected something new. Faint, rhythmic thumps emanating from RZ-9's enclosure. At first, she thought it might be the creature attacking a wall or floor panel, but the pattern was too regular, too deliberate. "It's trying to communicate," she whispered to herself, quickly adjusting her sensors to record the vibrations. That evening, she presented her findings to the xenobiology team. Security Chief Vorn scoffed openly. "You're anthropomorphizing a killer," he said. "Those vibrations are probably just it, testing structural weaknesses. It's hunting for a way out, not trying to talk to you." "I disagree," Maya countered, displaying her data. "The patterns change when I'm present versus other observers. It's responsive, adaptive." "Enough," Commander Drathos interrupted. "Lieutenant Nakamura, while your enthusiasm is noted, we need concrete results for the Council. Chief Vorn, schedule another physical capabilities test for tomorrow." "Those tests just provoke it," Maya objected. "Every aggressive incident has followed invasive testing." "This is not a debate, Lieutenant," Drathos snapped. "Follow protocols or be reassigned." As the meeting disbanded, the station alarms suddenly blared to life. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors as a computerized voice announced, "Containment breach exercise commencing. All personnel proceed to designated safe zones. This is a drill." Maya froze, her mind racing with images of RZ-9 loose in the station's corridors. Even knowing it was just a drill, she felt a cold sweat break out across her forehead. Was she being naive? Was she projecting her hopes onto a creature that would kill her without hesitation given the chance? Later that night, alone in her quarters, Maya sat cross-legged on her bed, reviewing footage of RZ-9. The doubt that had seized her during the drill still lingered at the edges of her mind. She pulled out an old, worn photograph, one of the few personal items she'd brought to the station. It showed a smiling man with kind eyes and a professor's tweed jacket, standing beside a much younger Maya in front of a natural history museum. "What would you say about this one?" "Dad," she whispered to the image. Her father, a renowned ethologist who had specialized in predator behavior, had taught her to look beyond fear to understanding. His voice seemed to echo in her memory. "Understand before you judge. Fear is the enemy of knowledge." With renewed determination, Maya began designing a handheld translator beacon, a device that could reproduce the rhythmic patterns she'd recorded from RZ-9, potentially allowing for basic communication. The next morning, as she prepared for her shift, the station shuddered violently. This was no drill. The emergency alarms wailed with a different, more urgent tone. "All personnel, emergency stations. Meteor strike on Section 12. Critical power systems compromised. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Maya grabbed her partially completed translator beacon and raced toward the xenobiology lab. The corridors were chaos, researchers and security personnel rushing in all directions as systems flickered and emergency protocols activated. She nearly collided with Dr. Alcati at the lab entrance. "Maya, thank goodness," the older scientist gasped. "The power surge has affected the containment wing. Secondary shields in the Predator section are failing." A cold dread settled in Maya's stomach. "RZ-9?" Alcati nodded grimly. "Security teams are mobilizing. Drathos has authorized lethal force if containment fails completely." On the main monitor, Maya could see the status of RZ-9's enclosure. The primary force field was holding, but the backup systems were offline. Worse, the automatic security protocol had initiated the emergency release sequence for the physical doors, a failsafe designed to prevent specimens from being trapped if life support failed, but which now threatened to release RZ-9 into the station. "They're going to kill it," Maya realized aloud, watching as armed security teams assembled on the screen. "They don't have a choice," Alcati replied, though her voice held regret. "If it gets loose?" "There's always a choice," Maya interrupted, grabbing her beacon and heading for the door. "We need to calm it, not kill it." "Maya, wait!" But she was already running down the corridor toward the containment wing. She passed security teams in full combat gear, ignoring their shouts for her to turn back. At the entrance to the Predator section, she found Commander Drathos coordinating the response. "Lieutenant Nakamura, this area is restricted. Return to your station immediately," he barked when he saw her. "Commander, please," Maya pleaded, holding up her beacon. "Let me try to communicate with it. If I can establish a connection, maybe I can guide it back to containment without bloodshed." "Absolutely not," Drathos snarled. "That creature has killed 7 people. I will not risk an 8th. "And how many more will die if your security teams engage it in the corridors?" Maya challenged. "At least let me try my way first. You can still execute your plan if I fail." Behind them, an alarm blared as the containment door's first lock disengaged. They had minutes at most. Drathos's vertical pupils dilated in what might have been fear or resignation. "You have 2 minutes, Lieutenant. After that, my teams move in with extreme prejudice." Maya nodded and rushed to the observation chamber. Through the glass, she could see RZ-9 moving restlessly as the locks on its enclosure continued their countdown to release. The creature seemed agitated, but not frenzied, aware something had changed, but uncertain what it meant. With trembling hands, Maya activated her handheld beacon, programming it to emit the rhythmic pulse sequence she had copied from RZ-9's earlier communications. The device hummed to life, sending vibrations through the floor and walls, a simple pattern that she hoped conveyed peaceful intent. The final lock disengaged with a loud clank. The containment door slid open. Maya made her decision. She overrode the lock to her own chamber and stepped directly into RZ-9's enclosure. Behind her, she heard shouts of alarm from the security team, but she kept her focus entirely on the creature before her. RZ-9 turned toward her, its multiple eyes fixed on her face. It extended its weaponized limbs slightly, not striking, but ready. Maya knelt slowly, placing the beacon on the floor between them. She kept her movements deliberate and non-threatening, trying to convey through body language what words could not. The beacon continued its rhythmic pulse. Maya held her breath, aware that her life hung in this moment of connection, or misunderstanding. Then, incredibly, RZ-9 responded. A low, resonant growl emerged from its body, precisely matching the pulse sequence from the beacon. It took a step forward, then another. Maya remained kneeling, fighting every instinct to flee. At the entrance to the enclosure, security teams had assembled with weapons trained on the creature. She could hear Vorn giving countdown orders for them to fire. "Wait," she called out, not daring to turn away from RZ-9. "It's communicating!" The creature was now just an arm's length away. Slowly, Maya extended her hand, palm up, a universal gesture of peace among humans, but an unknown signal to this alien predator. RZ-9 paused, its breathing audible in the tense silence. Then, to the astonishment of everyone watching, it lowered its weaponized limbs and extended one of its less armored appendages toward Maya's outstretched hand. Their contact lasted only seconds. The rough, scaled texture of RZ-9's limb against Maya's palm. But in that touch was a moment of mutual recognition that transcended species. The creature's eyes, so alien and yet so expressive, held Maya's gaze without hostility. "Stand down," Commander Drathos ordered the security team, his voice barely above a whisper. "Stand down." When emergency power was restored an hour later, RZ-9 willingly retreated to its enclosure, following the pulses from Maya's beacon like a beacon home. The security team watched in stunned silence as the creature that had been deemed an unthinking killing machine responded to simple communication with something approaching trust. In the aftermath, the xenobiology team and station command convened an emergency meeting. The atmosphere was markedly different, the tension of fear replaced by the excitement of discovery. "What we witnessed today challenges everything we thought we knew about RZ-9, Dr. Al-Qadi began, displaying footage of Maya's encounter with the creature. "It could have been a fluke," Security Chief Vorn argued, though with less conviction than before. One non-aggressive incident doesn't negate 7 deaths. Those deaths occurred during invasive testing and forced containment, Maya pointed out. Today proves RZ-9 can recognize and respond to non-threatening approaches. Commander Drathos, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. I've reviewed Lieutenant Nakamura's observation logs and today's incident. While I maintain that security protocols were violated. He paused, mandibles clicking in what might have been reluctant admission. There appears to be evidence of intelligence and discernment that we previously overlooked. So what happens now? Someone asked. Now, Maya said, feeling more confident than she had since arriving at the station. We start over. We approach RZ-9 not as a specimen to be tested, but as a potential sentient being with whom we can establish meaningful contact. Over the next weeks, Maya established a routine with RZ-9. She began with simple sessions, bringing light cubes that emitted patterns for the creature to mimic or respond to. It solved these puzzles with increasing speed, displaying problem-solving abilities that surpassed many Earth mammals. She introduced patterned vibrations next, more complex versions of the rhythmic pulses that had first established their connection. RZ-9 not only mimicked these, but began initiating its own patterns, creating a rudimentary form of communication. Most remarkably, the creature began responding to a name. After hearing Maya refer to it as Rays, her pronunciation of RZ-9, it would turn its attention to her whenever she used the term. Soon, it was following her on a loose leash during controlled corridor walks, a sight that initially terrified other station personnel, but gradually became a symbol of the transformative work happening at Helios Prime. The ripple effects spread throughout the station. Other researchers began petitioning for compassionate handling policies for their own specimens. The mood shifted from one of clinical detachment to curious engagement. Even Security Chief Vorn, initially the most skeptical, requested to observe one of Maya's sessions with Rays. I still don't trust it, he admitted afterward. But I can't deny there's something going on in there beyond basic predator instincts. Dr. Alcati helped Maya document their findings for the Interstellar Council, presenting compelling evidence that Rays possessed not just intelligence, but emotional capacity and social awareness. The Council, initially interested only in potential weapons applications, now faced an ethical question about the treatment of a potentially sentient species. 6 months after the containment incident, Maya stood in the station's main auditorium, addressing an audience that included not only Helios Prime personnel, but visiting dignitaries from the Interstellar Council and representatives from a dozen species. Beside her, Rays sat calmly, once dubbed the deadliest predator in the Epsilon Eridani system. Now, something between research subject and loyal guardian. Today marks the formal establishment of the Xenocare program, Maya announced. With the Council's approval, RZ-9, Rays, has been reclassified as a sentient subject rather than a specimen, with all the ethical protections that status entails. She placed a hand gently on Rays' scaled limb. What we've learned goes beyond xenobiology. When we approached with empathy rather than fear, with patience rather than force, we discovered a being capable of trust, learning, and cooperation. The deadliest predator became a partner in discovery, as if understanding its role in the ceremony. Rays tilted its head toward the audience and emitted a series of rhythmic pulses, the greeting pattern Maya had taught it. The audience's initial tension dissolved into murmurs of amazement. There are still many questions to be answered, Maya continued. We're only beginning to understand Rays' language, social structures, and cognitive capabilities. But what's clear is that violence and containment would have taught us nothing. It was only through dialogue, however basic, that true knowledge emerged. After the ceremony, Maya led Rays to the observation deck, a privilege no non-human specimen had ever been granted before. Together, they stood before the massive viewport, watching as the light of Epsilon Eridani illuminated the gas giant and its moons. including the one where Reyes had been captured. "That's your home," Maya said softly, pointing to a small, distant moon. "Maybe someday, when we understand each other better, you can show me what it's like there." Reyes's multiple eyes followed her gesture, then turned to study her face with an intensity that still sometimes unnerved her. But where once she would have seen only an alien predator, Maya now recognized curiosity, intelligence, perhaps even affection. The creature extended a limb, gently touching the viewport, then returned to Maya's side. As they stood there, hand in claw, Maya realized how far they had both come. The frightened rookie who had arrived at Helios Prime with a single duffel bag and a heart full of ambition had become a pioneer in interspecies communication. And the creature that had been feared as the station's deadliest predator had become her most loyal companion. Proof that the galaxy's greatest fears could transform into its greatest allies. "Lieutenant Nakamura," Commander Drathos's voice came from behind them. "The Council representatives wish to discuss expanding your program to other research stations." Maya nodded, turning from the viewport. "Come on, Reyes, we have work to do." As they walked together down the corridor, other station personnel no longer pressed themselves against the walls in fear. Instead, many nodded in greeting to both Maya and her unusual companion. Some even reached out tentative hands to touch Reyes's less dangerous limbs, marveling at the connection that had seemed impossible only months before. In her quarters that night, Maya updated her personal log while Reyes curled in a corner on the specially designed rest platform she had created for it. "Day 180 with Reyes," she recorded. "Today's breakthrough: rhythmic response to emotional cues. When I displayed images of various human expressions, Reyes produced distinct vibration patterns for each. Dr. Al-Qadi believes we're on the verge of establishing an emotional lexicon that could revolutionize interspecies communication." She paused, watching as Reyes's breathing settled into the slower rhythm that indicated rest. "On a personal note, I can't help but think about what Dad would say if he could see this. Understanding before judgment. He was right all along." The next morning brought a new challenge. The Interstellar Council had approved a mission to Reyes's home moon, an expedition to study its species in their natural habitat, and they wanted Maya to lead it, with Reyes as a guide and interpreter. "It's unprecedented," Dr. Al-Qadi told her excitedly. "No human has set foot on that moon before. The previous survey teams only observed from orbit after detecting life signs." "Is it safe?" Maya asked, thinking not of her own safety, but of Reyes's. "How will Reyes's kind react to seeing one of their own returning with humans?" "That's partly why the Council wants Reyes involved. They believe your connection might facilitate peaceful contact." Al-Qadi hesitated. "There's something else. The latest scans suggest a more complex social structure than we initially believed. There might be settlements, communities, not just isolated predators." The implications were staggering. If Reyes's species lived in organized societies, the ethical questions surrounding its capture and containment multiplied exponentially. It would no longer be a matter of handling a dangerous predator humanely, but of establishing diplomatic relations with a potentially sapient civilization. When Maya brought Reyes to the holographic chamber and showed it images of its home moon, the creature's reaction was immediate and profound. It produced a series of vibrations unlike any Maya had recorded before, complex, emotional, with harmonics that seemed to express both longing and apprehension. "You miss it," Maya said softly, placing a hand on Reyes's limb. "But you're also afraid to return. Why?" Over several intensive sessions using the translator beacon and holographic imagery, Maya began to piece together a narrative. Reyes had been an outcast among its kind, different in ways that made it vulnerable despite its formidable natural weapons. Its capture by humans, while traumatic, had possibly saved it from a worse fate on its home moon. No wonder it fought so hard when first captured, Maya told the expedition planning committee. And no wonder it responded to empathy. Rays understood what it meant to be the outsider, the one who didn't belong. The revelation added complexity to their mission. They weren't simply returning a captured predator to its natural environment. They were potentially reintroducing an exile to a society that had rejected it. Rays needs to make the choice, Maya insisted. We can't force this reunion any more than we could force communication. In the end, they developed a compromise. The expedition would establish an observation post in orbit around the moon. Maya and Rays would make initial short-duration visits to the surface, advancing to longer stays, only if both deemed it safe and appropriate. The day before their departure, Maya found Commander Drathos in her laboratory, studying the latest communication data from Rays. Remarkable progress, he acknowledged, mandibles moving in what she had come to recognize as his version of a thoughtful expression. I must admit, Lieutenant, that I had my doubts about your methods. I remember, Maya said with a small smile. Yes. Well, Drathos shifted uncomfortably. I have served at research outposts for 37 years. In that time, I have seen many promising scientists confuse empathy with anthropomorphism, projection with connection. Most paid for that confusion with their lives. He turned to face her directly. You proved me wrong, and in doing so, you've changed how we approach potentially sentient species across the sector. The Council has approved new protocols based on your work with Rays, the Nakamura protocols. They're calling them... Maya felt a surge of pride mingled with humility. It wasn't just me. Rays did the harder part, trusting humans after everything it had experienced. Perhaps, Drathos conceded. But someone had to extend the first hand. He handed her a small device. This is a direct communication link to my office. If you encounter any difficulties on the expedition, well, Helios Prime stands ready to assist. Coming from the formerly skeptical commander, it was tantamount to a declaration of full support. Maya accepted the device with a nod of gratitude. The expedition ship departed the following day, a sleek research vessel equipped with the latest xenobiological survey equipment and a specially designed habitat for Rays. As they broke orbit around the gas giant and set course for the small, rocky moon that was Rays' homeland, Maya felt a mixture of scientific excitement and personal trepidation. Beside her, on the observation deck, Rays pressed a limb against the viewport, its multiple eyes fixed on the approaching moon. The creature's body vibrated with a pattern Maya had learned to associate with anticipation, or perhaps anxiety. We'll take it slowly, she promised, though she knew Rays couldn't understand her exact words. One step at a time, just like we did at the station. The moon grew larger in the viewport, a world of jagged mountains and deep ravines, with patches of vegetation unlike anything on Earth. Atmospheric readings showed a breathable mix for humans, though slightly higher in nitrogen than Earth standard. Surface temperatures were cool but manageable with basic thermal gear. As they established orbit, the ship's sensors detected heat signatures consistent with settlements, clusters of activity in the shelter of valley formations, protected from the harsh winds that scoured the plateaus. Definite signs of social grouping, reported the science officer. Consistent with advanced pack predators or primitive settlements. We're detecting structures that appear deliberately constructed. Maya felt a shiver of anticipation. This was no longer just about returning Rays to its habitat. They were potentially making first contact with a new intelligent species. She turned to find Rays watching her, its eyes unblinking. You knew, didn't you? She asked quietly. You knew we'd discover this eventually. The landing team assembled in the shuttle bay, Maya, 2 xenobiologists, a security officer, at Command's insistence, and Rays. They had chosen a landing site several kilometers from the nearest settlement, allowing for a gradual approach that wouldn't alarm the indigenous population. As the shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere, Maya activated her translator beacon, setting it to emit calming pulses that had helped Reyes during times of stress on the station. The creature remained close to her side, occasionally producing vibrations that the team's linguists were still working to decipher, possibly warnings or instructions about their destination. The shuttle touched down on a flat rock outcropping overlooking a vast valley. When the doors opened, the team was met with a gust of cold, mineral-scented air. The landscape was alien, yet strangely beautiful. Rock formations in shades of deep purple and indigo, with patches of silver-blue vegetation clinging to protected crevices. Reyes was the first to exit the shuttle, moving with a grace and confidence Maya had never witnessed in the confines of the station. Its limbs extended fully, weapons appendages gleaming in the light of the distant sun. For a moment, Maya felt a flicker of the old fear. Here, in its natural environment, Reyes was truly a predator again. But then, the creature turned back toward her, extending a non-weaponized limb in what had become their shared gesture of trust. Maya stepped forward and placed her hand in Reyes's grasp. Together, they led the expedition across the rocky terrain toward a ridge that offered a view of the nearest settlement. Using enhanced optics, Maya could make out structures that appeared to be dwellings, constructed from local stone and what looked like woven vegetation. Moving among them were figures similar to Reyes, though with variations in size and coloration. "A civilization," whispered one of the xenobiologists. "Primitive, perhaps, but definitely a structured society." Reyes produced a series of vibrations that the translator interpreted as complex emotional signals, longing mixed with apprehension. Maya recognized the pattern from their discussions on the station. "You're not sure how they'll receive you," she said, understanding now. "You left as an outcast." Before anyone could respond, a sound echoed across the valley, a deep, resonant call that seemed to vibrate the very rocks beneath their feet. From the settlement, several figures had emerged and were looking in their direction. The call came again, and this time, Reyes tensed beside Maya. "What's happening?" the security officer asked, hand moving toward his weapon. "I think," Maya said slowly, "we're being invited down." What followed was both terrifying and exhilarating. Against Command's protocols, but following Reyes's lead, Maya accompanied the creature down into the valley, approaching the settlement while the rest of the team maintained observation from the ridge. With each step, she felt the weight of history. This was true first contact, mediated by the very being her people had once caged as a mindless killer. The inhabitants of the settlement emerged to meet them, 6, then 12, then more creatures like Reyes, their black scales reflecting the dim sunlight in iridescent patterns. They moved with coordinated precision that spoke of social hierarchy and communication. Some carried tools or weapons fashioned from local materials. When they were within 50 meters, the group stopped. One individual, larger than the others and bearing elaborate markings on its exoskeleton, stepped forward. It produced a complex series of vibrations that made the ground beneath Maya's feet tremble. Beside her, Reyes hesitated. Then, straightening to its full height, it responded with an equally complex pattern, one that included elements of the communication system it had developed with Maya. To her astonishment, Reyes placed one limb on her shoulder, incorporating her into its response. The leader's reaction was impossible to interpret with human understanding of expression, but its posture changed. Weapons, limbs lowered slightly, head tilted in what might have been curiosity. "I think," Maya whispered, hardly daring to breathe, "you're introducing me." What happened next would be debated in xenobiological conferences for years to come. The leader approached, stopping just meters from Maya and Reyes. It studied them both, multiple eyes shifting between the human and its former exile. Then, it extended a limb, not toward Reyes, but toward Maya. Heart pounding, Maya recognized the gesture she herself had taught Reyes months ago on Helios Prime. Slowly, she extended her hand, palm up. The leader placed its less weaponized appendage against her palm, a momentary touch that bridged worlds. By the time the expedition returned to Helios Prime 3 months later, the preliminary diplomatic contact had been established with what they now knew called themselves the Kareth, a vibration pattern that the linguistics team was still struggling to accurately reproduce in human speech. Reyes, whose true name was a complex harmonic impossible for human vocal cords, had become the first official translator between species. The reunion hadn't been without complications. Maya had learned that Reyes had indeed been an outcast, not because of physical difference as she had assumed, but because it had advocated for exploration beyond their moon, for contact with other worlds. Its capture had vindicated its controversial beliefs in the existence of other intelligent life, transforming it from pariah to prophet. On the final day of their expedition, as they prepared to return to the research vessel, the Kareth leader had approached Maya one last time. Through Reyes' translation, it conveyed a message that would reshape humanity's place in the galactic community. We have watched the stars for generations, knowing we were not alone. Our fear kept us isolated. Your courage in returning one of our own, in coming to us with open hands instead of weapons, gives us hope for what lies beyond our world. The predator and the prey can choose a different path, one of mutual respect and understanding. Now, standing before the Interstellar Council with Reyes at her side, Maya delivered her expedition report. The chamber was filled beyond capacity. Representatives from dozens of worlds had come to hear about the peaceful first contact facilitated by the unlikeliest of ambassadors. The Kareth have accepted our invitation to send a delegation to Earth, she concluded. They wish to establish formal diplomatic relations and scientific exchange. None of this would have been possible without Reyes, who risked rejection by its own kind to bridge our worlds. Reyes stepped forward, now adorned with symbols of its new status among both humans and Kareth. A translator medallion that enhanced its vibration patterns for human hearing, and ceremonial markings from its people that signified wisdom and vision. Using the most advanced version of Maya's translator beacon, Reyes addressed the council directly. I was captured as a predator and contained as a threat. I became a specimen to be studied. But one human saw beyond fear to possibility. She approached with open hands when others brought weapons. She listened when others would command. In doing so, she taught me that the greatest strength is not in claws or teeth, but in the courage to trust. My people and yours now have the chance to walk a new path together, neither predator nor prey, but partners in discovery. The council chamber erupted in the various sounds of approval from a dozen species. As the formal session concluded, Maya found Commander Drathos waiting for her in the antechamber. The Nakamura protocols have been officially adopted across all research outposts, he informed her, mandibles clicking with what she now recognized as pride. Your approach will be the standard for all potential first contact scenarios. And the name? Maya asked with a small smile. Couldn't we call them something more reflective of their purpose? The understanding protocols, perhaps. Names matter, Lieutenant, Drathos replied seriously. Yours will remind future generations that one person with the courage to question established wisdom can change how species interact for centuries to come. Later, Maya and Reyes walked the gardens of the council complex, a carefully maintained ecosystem featuring plants from dozens of worlds. Visitors stopped to stare at the unusual pair, the human woman and the creature once known as the deadliest predator in the Epsilon Eridani system, now her constant companion. They still fear you a little, Maya observed as a group of diplomats gave them a wide berth on the path. Reyes emitted a vibration pattern that the translator rendered as amused acknowledgement. Fear can become curiosity, Maya continued, and curiosity can become understanding, given time. They paused by a reflecting pool where the light of Earth's sun danced across the water surface. In the distance, the spires of the council headquarters reached toward the sky, a symbol of cooperation among different worlds and species. Maya thought about the frightened rookie who had stepped off that shuttle at Helios Prime, clutching a single duffel bag and harboring secret doubts about her assignment. She could never have imagined that her childhood fascination with predators would lead her here, to a diplomatic breakthrough that would reshape humanity's place among the stars. Beside her, rays produced the gentle vibration pattern that had become their private form of communication, a harmony that needed no translation between them. In response, Maya placed her hand on the creature's limb, the gesture that had first bridged their worlds. Together, the human and the former predator looked toward the horizon, where new worlds and new understandings awaited. The galaxy's greatest fears had indeed become its greatest allies, one open hand at a time.